The wind cut through David Walsh's jacket as he made his evening rounds through the outer sectors of New Terra Colony. His breath formed small clouds in the cold air. Winter would arrive in 3 weeks, and the temperature already dropped below freezing after sunset. He checked each storage unit methodically, making sure the environmental seals held tight. A faulty seal could mean frozen equipment, and frozen equipment could mean dead colonists. David had been doing this job for 2 years, ever since Lily died. The routine helped. Walk the perimeter, check the systems, go home, sleep, repeat. It kept his mind busy enough to avoid thinking too much about the empty house waiting for him. He reached storage unit 47 and noticed the door slightly open. His hand moved to his comm device instinctively. Vandals sometimes broke into the outer units looking for supplies to steal, but something made him pause. A sound barely audible over the wind. It sounded like breathing, labored and weak. David pulled the door open slowly. The dim light from his handheld scanner swept across the interior. 2 figures huddled in the corner, partially hidden behind old equipment crates. His first thought was colonists caught in the cold, but then his light reflected off scales. Not human skin. Scales that shimmered with a dull, grayish color. The larger figure moved, positioning itself between David and the smaller one. Wings unfolded slightly, though they trembled with exhaustion. A dragon-like face turned toward him, eyes wide with fear and defiance mixed together. The creature was clearly female, clearly protective, and clearly dying. The smaller figure behind her whimpered. A child, David realized. The little one's scales had barely formed, and her body shook violently from the cold. David had seen pictures of the Drakarian colony briefings. Dragon people, refugees from corporate wars and distant systems. The governor kept rejecting their asylum requests, calling them resource drains. The colony security force had orders to turn them away at the spaceport. But these two had somehow made it past the checkpoints. The mother dragon tried to speak, but her translator device hung broken around her neck, sparking occasionally. Her eyes tracked David's every movement. She expected him to call security. She expected to be dragged away. Her wings spread wider despite her weakness, trying to make herself look bigger, more threatening. David looked at the child. The little dragon's eyes had started to close. Hypothermia, he recognized the signs. Even species built for different worlds could freeze to death. He made a decision that would change everything. David removed his jacket slowly, keeping his movements obvious and non-threatening. He held it out toward the mother dragon. She stared at him confused. He pointed to the child, then to the jacket, then made a wrapping motion. The mother dragon hesitated, then understanding flickered across her face. She pulled the child closer and allowed David to wrap his jacket around the small body. The little one barely responded. David pulled out his comm device. The mother dragon tensed, preparing for him to call security. Instead, he switched it to mapping mode and showed her the screen. He pointed to a building labeled as his home address, then pointed to her, to the child, and back to the map. The dragon mother stared at him for a long moment. Her scales shifted slightly, colors swirling beneath the gray. David later learned this meant confusion mixed with desperate hope. She finally nodded once, a gesture that seemed universal. Getting them to his home took 20 minutes that felt like hours. The mother dragon could barely walk, leaning heavily on David. He carried the child, feeling how light she was, how wrong that felt. Children should not weigh so little. They moved through the shadows between buildings, avoiding the main paths where security drones patrolled. David's house sat on the edge of the residential sector. Small, prefabricated, identical to 50 others in the row. He had chosen it because it reminded him of nothing. Now he was grateful for its anonymity. He got them inside and immediately raised the temperature. The mother dragon collapsed onto his couch, pulling her child against her chest. David brought every blanket he owned and piled them on top of both dragons. He filled a bowl with warm water and set it near them. The mother dragon dipped her clawed hand into it, then helped her child drink. David went to his kitchen and stared at the food in his storage unit. What did dragons eat? He had no idea. He grabbed protein bars, dried fruit, some leftover chicken from his dinner. He brought it all out on a plate and set it on the floor near them. The mother dragon looked at the food, then at David, then back at the food. She took a small piece of chicken and gave it to her child first. The little one chewed weakly. Only after the child had eaten did the mother take anything for herself. David stepped back and really looked at them for the first time. The mother dragon's scales showed ribs underneath. Her wings had tears along the edges. The child curled against her mother, wrapped in a jacket and blankets, finally warming up enough to fall into real sleep instead of hypothermic unconsciousness. He glanced at the closed door down the hallway. Lily's room. He had not opened it in 2 years, could not bring himself to pack away her things or change anything. But these two needed somewhere to sleep, somewhere warmer than his couch. David walked to the door and opened it for the first time since the funeral. Everything remained exactly as Lily had left it. The bed still made, stuffed animals arranged on the shelf, drawings taped to the walls. His chest tightened. He turned back to find the mother dragon watching him. Her eyes held understanding. She had lost things too. He could see it in the way she held her child, in the desperate protectiveness of her posture. David gestured to the room, then to her and the child. The mother dragon's eyes widened. She looked at the child's room, at the toys and the small bed, and her scales shifted to a deep blue color. David would learn later this meant gratitude mixed with sorrow. She gathered her child carefully and moved into the room. David brought more blankets and placed them on the floor beside the bed, understanding she might not want to use Lily's bed itself. The mother dragon arranged the blankets into a nest and settled her child in the center. David left them there and closed the door quietly. He stood in his hallway listening to the soft sounds of breathing from behind the door. For the first time in 2 years, his house held life again. He had no plan, no idea what would come next. He had just harbored illegal aliens, risking expulsion from the colony and criminal charges. But when he closed his eyes, all he could see was that child's face gray with cold, dying in a storage unit. Someone should have helped them before now. Since no one else had, it would have to be him. David woke before dawn, as he always did. For a moment, he forgot about his guests. Then he heard a soft sound from Lily's room and remembered everything. 2 dragons, mother and child, sleeping in his daughter's room. What had he done? He made breakfast quietly. Eggs, toast, some fruit. Halfway through cooking, he realized he had no idea if dragons could even eat human food. The mother had eaten the chicken last night, so maybe protein was safe. He added more eggs to the pan. David arranged the food on 2 plates and approached Lily's room. He knocked softly, waited, then opened the door. The mother dragon was awake, sitting upright with her wings folded tight against her back. Her child still slept in the nest of blankets. The mother's eyes tracked David as he entered, wary but not hostile. He set the plates down near them and backed away. The mother dragon looked at the food, then at him. She reached out slowly and touched one of the eggs with a claw. She sniffed it, then pushed the plate away gently. David's stomach sank. Wrong food. Of course it was wrong food. Different species, different biology. He gestured to ask what she needed, but without a working translator, communication was nearly impossible. He left for work an hour later, troubled. The colony maintenance schedule would not wait for personal crises. All day while checking environmental systems and repairing ventilation units, his mind stayed on the 2 dragons in his home. Were they okay? Were they scared? What did they need? During his lunch break, David used his datapad to search the colony database for information about Drakari biology. Most files were restricted, marked as security sensitive. He found only basic facts. Drakari were carnivorous, requiring high protein and certain minerals. They could eat some plant matter but gained little nutrition from it. They needed calcium supplements that humans did not. Their body temperature ran hotter than humans, and they were sensitive to certain human foods that were toxic to their systems. David made a list. After work, he would need to find proper food. The colony commissary would not stock Drakari supplies, which meant he would have to improvise. He finished his shift and made a detour to the colony warehouse. His security clearance allowed him access to the industrial supply sections. He found mineral supplements used for manufacturing and checked their composition. Close enough, maybe. He took a small container, knowing he was technically stealing but not caring. The commissary gave him odd looks when he bought 5 kilograms of raw protein packs, the kind usually used for long-range supply missions. He also bought calcium tablets and vitamin supplements. His credit account took a significant hit. When David returned home, he found the mother dragon standing in his kitchen. She had opened his cold storage and was examining its contents with a puzzled expression. She jumped when he entered, wings flaring instinctively. David set down his bags and slowly unpacked them, showing her each item. The protein packs made her scales shift color slightly, warming from gray toward a lighter shade. She reached out and touched one package, then looked at him with an expression he could read even across species lines. Question: how much did this cost? Why spend this on strangers? He just shrugged and handed her the package. She opened it carefully, sniffed the contents, then took a small taste. Her whole body relaxed. Real food, finally. The child woke up then, making soft chirping sounds. The mother dragon brought food to her daughter immediately. David watched the little one eat, seeing color return to her scales. She looked at him with large eyes, curious now instead of afraid. Over the next week, a routine developed. David worked during the day. When he came home, the mother dragon would be waiting, usually having found small ways to help around the house. She fixed a leaking pipe in his bathroom using only her claws and some wire. She adjusted his environmental control unit so it ran more efficiently. She could not speak to him, but her actions communicated clearly. She was not helpless. She was capable. She wanted to contribute. David spent his evenings working on her translator device. He spread the broken pieces across his kitchen table and studied them. The technology was different from human designs but followed logical principles. The mother dragon watched him work, sometimes making gestures to show him how pieces fit together. Progress came slowly. The translator had been deliberately damaged, crushed under something heavy. David felt anger rise in him when he realized this. Someone had broken it on purpose, removing her ability to communicate, making her more vulnerable. What kind of person did that to a refugee? The mother dragon seemed to sense his anger. She reached out and touched his hand gently with one claw. Her scales had shifted to a soft green color. David did not know what it meant, but the gesture itself was clear. Calm, it was okay. She had survived. The child, meanwhile, began exploring the house. She found Lily's old toys and looked at David questioningly. He nodded, throat tight. The little dragon picked up a stuffed animal and hugged it. She carried it everywhere after that. One evening, the child brought David a toy and gestured for him to play. He did not know dragon games, but he tried. He rolled a ball and she chased it, wings flapping excitedly. Her laughter sounded like small bells chiming. David found himself smiling, really smiling for the first time in 2 years. He left the room quickly, overwhelmed. In his bedroom, he sat on the edge of his bed and cried. The mother dragon appeared in his doorway, silent. She did not approach, just stood there, present, understanding. After that night, something shifted between them. Trust, fragile but growing. 3 weeks after finding them, David finally repaired the translator. He activated it carefully, and a small holographic interface appeared. The mother dragon put it around her neck and touched the controls. A mechanical voice spoke, testing. "Does this work?" David nodded, almost afraid to hear what she would say. The dragon mother looked at him for a long moment. Her scale shifted through several colors. Finally she spoke. "Why help us?" David thought about all the reasons. Because it was right. Because they needed help. Because he could not walk away. Because seeing that child dying in the cold had broken something open inside him that had been frozen since Lily died. Because someone should have helped you before now, he said simply. The mother dragon scales turned a warm gold color. "My name is Kira, my daughter is Pip, we are grateful. I'm David, and you don't need to be grateful. You just need to be safe." Kira tilted her head, studying him. "You lost a child." This was her room, it was not a question. David nodded. Her name was Lily, she died 2 years ago. Colony plague. Kira's scales shifted to deep blue. "I lost my mate. Corporate war. 8 months ago." They stood in silence, two parents who had lost everything, who understood grief in their bones. Pip ran into the room then, holding the stuffed animal, chirping happily. She went to David and hugged his leg, then ran to her mother and did the same. Kira looked down at her daughter, then at David. She has not laughed like this since before the war. "Thank you." David knelt down to Pip's level. "You can stay here as long as you need," Kira translated for her daughter. Pip's eyes went wide, and she launched herself at David, wings and arms wrapping around him in an enthusiastic hug. He caught her, surprised, and found himself laughing. Kira watched them, her scales glowing warm gold. "You have given us more than shelter, David Walsh. You have given us hope." That night, David fell asleep to the sound of Pip singing a Drakari lullaby in the next room, with Kira's voice joining in softly. His house felt like a home again. 3 weeks passed like water finding its level. David, Kira, and Pip settled into rhythms that felt natural despite their strangeness. Mornings meant David making his breakfast while Kira prepared raw protein for herself and Pip. Evenings meant shared time in the living room, with Pip playing and the adults talking quietly. Kira proved to be more than capable around the house. She had been an engineer before the war, and her skills showed in everything she touched. One day, David came home to find his entire environmental control system disassembled across the floor. He nearly panicked until Kira explained through her translator that she was upgrading it. "Your system works, but inefficiently," she said, her claws carefully rewiring components. "Humans design with redundancy. Good for safety, bad for power consumption. Drakari design with harmony. I can blend both." When she finished, the house temperature became more stable, and David's power usage dropped by 15%. He stared at the control panel in amazement. "How did you see the problem? I've been living with this system for 2 years. Kira's scales shifted to a color he had learned meant amusement. "Drakari can sense electromagnetic fields. Your wiring sang off-key to me. I fixed the song." David realized then that having a different species around meant seeing problems through completely different eyes. What he had accepted as normal, Kira saw as fixable, but life was not all easy. David's friend Riley, who worked in colony administration, stopped by one evening. David introduced Kira and Pip as visiting friends, which was technically not a lie but felt like one. Riley was kind, but her eyes held worry when she pulled David aside. "Governor Heston is increasing surveillance on illegal aliens," she whispered. "Security Chief Barnes has been asking questions about resource usage patterns. If you're helping someone, David, you need to be careful." After Riley left, David told Kira what she had said. Kira's scales turned gray, the color of fear. "We should leave. Tonight. You have already risked too much." "No." David surprised himself with how firmly he said it. "We'll figure something out." "You're not leaving." But the worry stayed with him. How long could they hide? What would happen when they were discovered? Pip seemed unaware of the danger. She had started learning English, mixing human and Drakari words in ways that made both adults smile. She called David David and asked him constant questions about everything. Why is sky blue? Why is grass purple? Why do humans have no wings? David answered each question patiently, and Kira translated the harder concepts. Teaching Pip became the bright spot in his days. One evening, Pip asked something that made both adults fall silent. "Can I go outside? I want to see the grass. Real grass, not through window." Kira's scales shifted to deep blue, sadness. Pip had not been outside in months, not since they began fleeing. A child who could fly, trapped indoors. It was wrong. David thought for a long moment. There's a place we could go. An old agricultural dome on the colony edge. It was damaged in a storm last year, abandoned. No one goes there. They went that night, moving through shadows. David had access codes to all colony structures. The dome rose like a ghost against the dark sky, its transparent panels cracked but intact enough. Inside, purple grass grew wild, untended. Alien plants from Earth mixed with native vegetation, creating something that belonged to no single world. David activated emergency lights, giving them enough illumination to see. Pip stood frozen in the entrance. She had never seen so much open space. Slowly, carefully, she stepped onto the grass. Her clawed feet sank slightly into the soft earth. She looked back at her mother with wonder. "Go ahead," Kira said softly. Pip ran. Her wings unfurled and she leaped into the air, flying in short bursts, landing and running and flying again. Her laughter echoed through the dome. She rolled in the grass, chased flying insects, discovered flowers and brought them to show Kira and David. Kira stood beside David, watching her daughter play. Her scales shifted through colors faster than David had ever seen. Joy, relief, sadness, love, all mixing together. "A child should play outside," she said quietly. I had almost forgotten what her happiness looked like. David watched Pip fly in wide circles, her small wings beating hard. "I'm sorry you've had to run for so long. We survived. That is enough." But Kira's voice held doubt. They sat in the grass while Pip played. Kira caught small flying creatures with reflexes too fast for David to follow, eating them efficiently. David had brought sandwiches for himself. They shared a comfortable silence, the kind that only comes between people who have learned to trust each other. After a while, Kira spoke. Among my people there is a gesture, a way to show someone they are family. She turned to face him fully. May I show you? David nodded, curious. Kira leaned forward and pressed her forehead gently against his. Her scales felt warm, smooth, alive. She held the position for a moment, then pulled back. This means you are my family now, not by blood but by choice, by action, by staying. David felt something shift in his chest. Family. He had not thought of himself as part of a family since Lily died. The word felt too big, too important to claim. I don't know if I'm family material anymore, he said honestly. I couldn't save Lily. I couldn't stop the plague. Kira's scales turned a gentle green. Family is not about saving everyone. Family is about being present, about seeing someone and choosing to stay. You saw us. You stayed. That is family. Pip flew over and crashed into both of them, knocking them sideways into the grass. She laughed and chirped, wings spread wide, embracing them both. They lay there in the grass, three beings from two different worlds tangled together. Above them, the cracked dome showed stars. David realized he felt happy. Actually happy. Not just surviving or going through motions, but genuinely alive. I want to make this work, he said. Not just hiding. Really staying. Making New Terra your home. Kira looked at him seriously. That would mean making our presence legal. The governor rejects all Drakari asylum requests. Then we change his mind. Somehow. That is a dangerous hope, David. Yeah, but it's hope. They gathered Pip eventually and headed home. The child fell asleep on David's shoulder during the walk, her wings wrapped around his neck like a scarf. Kira walked beside them, her tail swishing contentedly. Back home, David tucked Pip into her nest of blankets. She mumbled something in Drakari, still mostly asleep. Kira translated. She said, "This is the best day ever." David smiled. "Tell her we'll have more. Lots more." But as he went to bed that night, his datapad showed a new message from Riley. Security sweep starting your sector in 48 hours. Random housing inspections. Be ready, time had run out. David read Riley's message 3 times before his hands stopped shaking. 48 hours. Security sweeps. Random housing inspections. They would find Kira and Pip and then everything would end. He found Kira in the kitchen teaching Pip how to properly clean Drakari claws. The domestic normalcy of the scene made his chest ache. Kira. We need to talk. She looked up and immediately saw something in his face. Her scales shifted toward gray. What happened? He showed her the message. She read it once, then handed back his datapad. Her expression became distant, controlled. She had practiced this moment in her mind many times, David realized. She had always known it would come. Pip and I will leave tonight, she said calmly. You have done more than enough. This was always temporary. No. David's voice came out harder than he intended. That's not happening. David, you will lose everything. Your home, your job, possibly your freedom. We are not worth that. That's not your choice to make. He knelt down to Pip's level. The little dragon looked between them, confused by the tension. Pip, do you like it here? She nodded enthusiastically. I like it very much, David. This is my home. David looked back at Kira. This is her home, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away. Kira's scales shifted through several colors before settling on gold mixed with blue, gratitude and sorrow. What can we possibly do? David had been asking himself the same question all day. Every option seemed impossible. Hiding would not work. Running would just postpone the problem. That left only one choice. We go public tomorrow. I request an emergency session with the colony. Council. They will arrest us. Maybe. Or maybe they'll listen. You have too much faith in people. Your people. Pip is people. If I have faith in anyone, why not start there? The next day, David submitted his request for an emergency council session. The response came within an hour. Approved for that evening. Governor Heston himself would attend. David spent the afternoon preparing. He gathered every piece of evidence he could find. Records of Kira's repairs to his home systems. Documentation of her engineering credentials from before the war. Data showing the improvements she had made to his environmental controls. When evening came, they walked to the colony administration building together. Colonists stared as they passed. A human with 2 dragons walking openly. People pulled out their comm devices, recording. By the time they reached the building, a small crowd had formed. The council chamber held 12 seats arranged in a semicircle. Governor Heston sat in the center, a thin man with calculating eyes. Security Chief Barnes stood against the wall, hand near his weapon. Other council members watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. David stood in the speaker's area with Kira and Pip beside him. Pip held his hand tightly, scared by all the strange faces. "State your purpose," Governor Heston said flatly. David took a breath. "My name is David Walsh. I work as a maintenance technician for this colony. 5 weeks ago, I found these 2 people dying in an abandoned storage unit. Kira and her daughter Pip are Drakari refugees. I gave them shelter. I'm here to request that you grant them asylum." The chamber erupted in voices, some angry, some surprised. Heston raised his hand for silence. "You are aware that harboring unauthorized aliens is a criminal offense?" "Yes, sir." "And you did it anyway?" "Yes, sir." "Because it was right." Barnes stepped forward. "Governor, this man has violated colony security protocols. The aliens should be detained immediately and Walsh should face charges." David had expected this. He pulled out his datapad and projected a holographic display. "Kira is an engineer. In the 5 weeks she's been in my home, she's made improvements to residential environmental systems that increased efficiency by 15%. She identified a critical flaw in Sector 7's life support that your maintenance teams missed. That got attention." The council members leaned forward. One of them, an elderly woman named Patricia Lee, spoke up. "What flaw in Sector 7? Kira activated her translator. "The primary circulation pump has a harmonic resonance issue. It will fail within 3 days. When it fails, 43 people will lose life support." Barnes scoffed. "Convenient claim. No way to verify that." "Then verify it," David said. "Send a team to Sector 7 right now. Check the pump. Prove her wrong." Heston studied them both. "And if you're wasting our time, then arrest me too." The governor considered, then nodded to Barnes. "Send a maintenance team. We'll continue this session once we have confirmation." The wait was agony. 2 hours passed. The council talked among themselves. David, Kira, and Pip sat on a bench outside the chamber. Pip had fallen asleep against David's side. Kira's scales remained gray, fear and stress. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "thank you for seeing us as people." Not many did. Finally, Barnes returned. His expression was unreadable. He walked straight to Governor Heston and spoke in low tones. Heston's eyebrows rose. They were called back into the chamber. "The maintenance team confirms the flaw," Heston said. "The pump would have failed in approximately 72 hours. Chief Barnes, how did our inspectors miss this?" Barnes looked uncomfortable. "The harmonic issue requires specialized detection equipment. Our standard inspections wouldn't catch it." Patricia Lee spoke again. "So this Drakari female potentially saved 43 lives. And we're debating whether to throw her out?" "The law is clear," Heston said. "Colony resources are limited. We cannot accept every refugee who arrives." "I'm not asking you to accept every refugee," David said. "I'm asking you to accept 2 people. 1 skilled engineer and 1 child. Let them stay. Let them contribute." Another council member, a middle-aged man named Robert Ford, shook his head. "This sets a precedent. If we allow these 2, more will come." "Good," Patricia said sharply. "When I came to the colonies 40 years ago, fleeing Earth's resource wars, Mars colony turned me away. Said they had no room, no resources. I eventually found shelter on Europa Station with people who saw me as a human being instead of a resource drain. We promised ourselves we'd build better colonies. Colonies that didn't turn away people in need. Have we forgotten that?" The chamber fell silent. Heston leaned back in his chair. "The question remains, what do we do with them now? The law says they should be deported." "Then change the law," Patricia said. "We have that power. Draft a sponsorship program. Allow colonists to sponsor refugees if they can vouch for their skills and support them. That would take time to implement. Then implement it. Tonight. Emergency powers. We've used them for less important matters." The debate continued. David watched, holding his breath. Pip woke up and asked what was happening. Kira explained in soft Drakari. Finally, Heston called for a vote. The chamber fell silent as each council member registered their decision. The holographic display showed the results. 6 votes for the sponsorship program, 5 against, 1 abstention. "The motion passes," Heston said. "We will implement an emergency refugee sponsorship program." As for Kira and Pip specifically, we need a second vote. All in favor of granting them provisional asylum under David Walsh's sponsorship. Another vote. This time 5-4, 5 against, 1 abstention, a tie. As governor, I must break the tie. Heston looked at David, at Kira, at Pip. His expression remained unreadable. Provisional acceptance. 6-month review period. David Walsh becomes official sponsor, responsible for their conduct and integration. Any violations and all 3 of you face consequences. David felt his knees go weak. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You've made your lives much more complicated. Outside the chamber, a crowd had gathered. When they emerged, people stared. Some looked angry, but others, families from Sector 7 who had heard about the life support save, started clapping. The applause spread. Not everyone joined in, but enough did. Pip looked up at David. What does this mean? It means we can stay. Really stay. This is home now. Pip's wings flared with joy and she jumped into the air, flying in excited circles above them. People laughed, even some who had looked angry moments before. Kira pressed her forehead to David's. The family gesture right there in public, we stayed, she whispered. Yeah, David said, smiling through tears. We stayed. 3 months passed like a held breath slowly released. David, Kira, and Pip walked through the colony openly now, though not everyone welcomed them. Some colonists crossed the street when they saw Kira coming. Others whispered and pointed. But enough people smiled and nodded to make the hostility bearable. Kira took a position as assistant engineer in the colony's maintenance division. Her supervisor, a woman named Carol Wright, had been skeptical at first. Drakari engineering was different from human methods, but after Kira redesigned the water recycling system and increased efficiency by 30%, Carol became her strongest defender. I don't care what species you are, Carol told anyone who complained. You make my job easier, you're on my team. Pip started attending the colony school. David walked her there each morning before his shift. The first day had been hard. Human children stared at her with wide eyes. Some parents complained to the school administrator, but children adapted faster than adults. Within a week, Pip had 3 close friends. They taught her human games, and she taught them how to play Drakari chase, which involved a lot more aerial maneuvers. The schoolyard became a place of laughter, mixing human and Drakari sounds. David's house transformed too. Pip's drawings covered every wall. Kira's engineering notes spread across the kitchen table each evening. The refrigerator held both human food and the protein packs Kira needed. It felt chaotic and alive and right, but the 6-month review loomed. In 3 weeks, the council would vote on whether to make Kira and Pip's residency permanent. Security Chief Barnes had been watching them closely, clearly hoping to find violations. Governor Heston remained cold and formal in all interactions. Then the generator failed. David was at work when the alarm sounded. All across the colony, screens flashed red. Primary power generator offline. Backup systems engaged but failing. Estimated time until life support collapse, 72 hours. Emergency meetings filled the administration building. Engineers swarmed the generator facility. Carol brought Kira in to consult. Despite Barnes's protests that allowing an alien access to critical infrastructure was a security risk. The generator core had cracked, a catastrophic failure caused by metal fatigue. The backup systems designed to last a week were failing too, because they had been poorly maintained. Replacement parts would not arrive from Earth for 6 weeks. We can't survive 6 weeks on minimal power, Carol said, her voice tight with stress. We need a solution now. The human engineers proposed various fixes, but each had critical flaws. They could reroute power from non-essential systems, but that would still leave them days short of the resupply arrival. They could try to repair the cracked core, but that would be temporary at best and might fail catastrophically. Kira studied the schematics silently. David watched her scales shift through colors as she thought. After an hour, she spoke. There is a possibility, not a certainty. Drakari power systems use harmonic field resonance instead of pure mechanical redundancy. If I could retrofit your backup systems with harmonic principles, we could increase efficiency enough to survive until parts arrive. How certain are you? Governor Heston asked. 60%, maybe 70%. It has never been done before, combining Drakari and human power engineering. And if it fails, then we are no worse off than we are now. Barnes stepped forward. Governor, We cannot trust colony survival to untested alien technology. This could be sabotage. Carol turned on him angrily. She saved Sector 7. She's improved every system she's touched. If you have a better idea, share it. Otherwise, stop wasting time. Heston considered for a long moment. Do it. You have 16 hours before backup systems fail completely. The next 16 hours became a blur. Kira worked with a team of human engineers and the handful of other Drakari refugees who had arrived under the new sponsorship program. David stayed, running errands, bringing food and tools, managing logistics. Pip sat with the other children in the emergency shelter. They were scared, but being together helped. Pip told them stories about her home world, about cities that floated on electromagnetic fields. The human children listened, temporarily forgetting their fear. In the generator facility, Kira directed the retrofit with quiet authority. The human engineers struggled at first to understand her methods. Drakari engineering was not linear the way human engineering was. It relied on sensing fields and harmonics that humans could not perceive naturally. Think of it like music, Kira explained through her translator. You are trying to make different instruments play the same note. But they should not play the same note. They should harmonize, different notes that work together. Slowly, the human engineers began to understand. They adapted, improvised, learned. The work became collaborative in ways David had never seen before. Two species with completely different approaches finding ways to blend their knowledge. 12 hours in, Kira had not slept. Her scales had turned a dull gray from exhaustion. David brought her protein packs and forced her to eat. You need rest, he said. No time. If I stop, I might miss something. If you collapse, we definitely fail. Rest. Even just an hour. Kira's scales shifted to a lighter shade, recognition of truth. She rested for 40 minutes, leaning against David, while the other engineers continued work under her instructions. 3 hours before backup failure, the retrofit was complete. Kira ran final checks, her claws moving across holographic interfaces, sensing things the human instruments could not measure. Ready, she said finally. Every person in the colony gathered around screens, watching. In the generator facility, Kira's claw hovered over the activation control. Governor Heston stood beside her. For the record, if this works, you'll have saved 3,000 lives. If it fails, I want you to know I believe you tried your best. It was the first kind thing Heston had said to her. Kira activated the system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the displays lit up with data. The human engineers looked confused. The readings are all wrong, one said. Carol studied the screens. No, they're different. Look at the harmonic patterns. Kira translated the readings. Efficiency at 140% of original capacity. Power stable. Temperature within safe parameters. It works. The facility erupted in cheers. Engineers hugged each other, humans and Drakari together. Carol lifted Kira off her feet in an enthusiastic embrace, forgetting that Drakari did not usually appreciate being picked up. Back in his home that night, David found Kira sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. Pip was asleep in her room. You saved us, he said. I did my job. No. You did more than that. You showed everyone what's possible when we work together. Kira's scales shifted toward blue. Some still hate us. Barnes watched me the entire time, hoping I would fail. Some will always hate what's different, but enough people saw the truth today. Enough people changed their minds. The next morning, David found a message from Patricia Lee. The council had moved up the review hearing. They would vote that afternoon on permanent residency. The council chamber was packed. People stood in the hallways, unable to fit inside. David, Kira, and Pip sat in the front row. Governor Heston did not waste time. We're here to vote on permanent residency for Kira and Pip, sponsored by David Walsh. Given recent events, I believe the decision is straightforward. The vote came quickly. Unanimous approval. Pip jumped into the air with joy, forgetting where she was. Her wings spread wide in the council chamber. People laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Outside, the crowd that had gathered broke into applause. Families from Sector 7 were there. The engineers Kira had worked with. Pip's school friends and their parents. Even some who had been hostile before seemed moved by what had happened. David picked up Pip and held her high. You're home. Really, truly home. Kira's scales glowed pure gold. We are home. That evening, Patricia Lee visited their house. She brought documents. 17 Drakari families have applied for sponsorship, she said. The program you started is growing. We're becoming something new, a real multi-species colony. After she left, David stood on his small porch watching the sky. Above, ships came and go from the spaceport. Human ships and now Drakari ships too. Behind him, he heard Pip laughing as Kira told her a bedtime story. His house, once silent and cold, now rang with life. One choice, one decision to help, and it had changed everything. 6 months after the generator crisis, New Terra Colony looked different, not in obvious ways, but in the small details that spoke of real change. Drakari children flew alongside human children in the schoolyard. The commissary stocked both human and Drakari food. Signs appeared in 2 languages. The colony was growing into something it had never been before, something better. David walked Pip to school as he did every morning. She chattered about her upcoming class presentation on Drakari history. Her wings were stronger now, fully developed. She could fly for hours without tiring. "Will you come watch?" she asked. "I want you to see." "I'll be there," David promised. At the school entrance, Pip hugged him and flew off to join her friends. 3 human children and 2 other young Drakari, all talking and laughing together. David watched them go, feeling that familiar warmth in his chest that meant family. His comm device buzzed. Carol needed him at the water processing plant. A routine call, the kind that made up his days now. Good days, normal days. Kira was already there when he arrived, hovering near the main pump assembly with her datapad. She had become the colony's chief environmental engineer 3 months ago. The promotion had caused some grumbling, but her track record spoke for itself. Systems ran smoother. Efficiency was up across the board. Even Governor Heston had to admit she was good at her job. "David," she called down to him, "look at this. The harmonic resonance is off in pump 3. He climbed up beside her. "How can you tell?" She took his hand and placed it against the pump housing. "Feel. It vibrates wrong." David felt nothing unusual, but he had learned to trust Kira's senses. Drakari could perceive things humans could not. They worked together to recalibrate the system, their coordination smooth from months of practice. Afterward, they sat in the facility break room sharing lunch. Kira had learned to eat some human foods, and David had developed a taste for certain Drakari protein preparations. Not all differences could be bridged, but enough could to make shared life work. "Pip's presentation is today," Kira said. "She has been practicing all week. I promised I'd be there." "You coming?" "Of course." She asked me to bring the holographic projector. They arrived at the school that afternoon to find the classroom packed with parents, human and Drakari both. Pip stood at the front, wings folded neatly, trying to look professional despite her excitement. Her presentation covered Drakari history, culture, and the refugee crisis. She showed images of her birth world before the corporate wars, beautiful cities built on harmonic principles, then images of the destruction, the fleeing ships, the refugee camps. "My mama and I ran for 8 months, she said. Her English nearly perfect now. Many colonies said no. They were scared or didn't have room or didn't want aliens. But David said yes. He gave us home." She looked directly at David when she said it. His throat tightened. "Now more Drakari families come here. Now New Terra is home for many people, human and Drakari together. This is good. This is how it should be." The classroom applauded. David noticed some parents wiping their eyes. Even the teacher looked moved. After school, they walked home together as a family. Pip flew ahead, then circled back full of energy. She had made a picture in class, a drawing of their house with 3 figures outside. David, Kira, and Pip holding hands. "Can we hang this one in the living room?" she asked. "Absolutely." At home, David carefully placed the drawing next to the picture of Lily that hung on the wall. Past and present, loss and love. Both were part of who he was now. That evening brought unexpected visitors. Patricia Lee and several other council members, along with a Drakari elder named Shen. They carried official-looking documents. "We have a proposal," Patricia said. "The sponsorship program is working, but it's still too limited. We want to expand it into a full integration initiative. Shared governance, shared resources, shared future. We need people to lead it. People both species trust." She looked at David and Kira. "You want us to run the program?" David asked, surprised. "You started it," Shen said, his translator making his voice sound formal. You showed what is possible. Who better to guide others? Kira's scales shifted through several colors. This would be a significant responsibility. It would also be full-time work with better pay, Patricia added practically. You would coordinate between species, help new refugees integrate, develop new policies. David looked at Kira. They had built something good here, something worth protecting and expanding. The idea of helping others find what they had found felt right. Can we think about it?
Kira asked. Of course.
But not too long. We want to start in a month. After the visitors left, David and Kira sat on the porch while Pip played in the yard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that existed only on this world. What do you think? David asked. Kira watched her daughter fly lazy circles above them. I think we could help many people. I think we could make real change. It won't be easy. There's still resistance. Barnes still watches us. Some colonists still want aliens gone. Nothing worthwhile is easy. Kira's scales glowed soft gold. When I found you in that storage unit, I was ready to die. I had given up. You gave me a reason to hope again. If we can give that to others, we should. David thought about the man he had been 2 years ago, walking through empty rooms, going through motions, not really living. He thought about the moment he opened that storage unit door and decided to help instead of report. My daughter would have liked you, he said quietly. Lily always wanted to meet aliens. She had pictures of different species all over her walls. She would have loved Pip. Kira pressed her forehead to his in the family gesture. I wish I could have met her. In a way you did. This was her room where you first stayed. Her toys that Pip played with. Her drawings still on the walls. She's part of this family too. Pip landed beside them, curious about their serious expressions. What are you talking about? About how lucky we are, David said, pulling her into a hug. About how we found each other. Not found, Pip corrected him. Made. We made our family. She was right. Family was not something you found passively. It was something you built actively, through choices and actions and staying even when things got hard. That night, David sent a message to Patricia. They would take the position. Together, they would help build something bigger than themselves. Before bed, David stood in the hallway looking at the walls covered with Pip's drawings and Lily's old pictures. The house that had been a tomb for his grief had become a home for his future. In Pip's room, Kira was tucking her daughter into the nest of blankets. The bedtime routine had become ritual. Pip would ask for a story, Kira would tell one, and David would come in to say goodnight. Will you tell me about the floating cities again? Pip asked, yawning. Kira began the story in Drakari, her voice musical. David listened from the doorway, not understanding the words but understanding everything important. This was safety. This was love. This was home. When Pip fell asleep, Kira joined David in the hallway. They stood together in comfortable silence. Thank you, Kira said softly, for everything. For seeing us. For staying. For believing we were worth the risk. You were always worth it, David said. Both of you. I'm the one who should be grateful. You gave me a reason to live again instead of just existing. Outside, the colony settled into night. In the distance, a Drakari ship landed at the spaceport, bringing new refugees who would need help, need hope, need someone to see them as people instead of problems. Tomorrow, David and Kira would start working to give them that. But tonight they were simply a family. Human and Drakari, grief and joy, loss and love all woven together. David looked at his family, at the life they had built from a single moment of compassion, and smiled. He had been right that night in the storage unit. Someone should have helped them sooner. But since no one else had, he did. And that choice, that simple decision to see people in need and help them, had changed everything. Not just for Kira and Pip, not just for himself, but for the whole colony, which was learning day by day what it meant to be truly human, to see beyond differences, to embrace instead of exclude, to build bridges instead of walls. The story had started with two lonely people finding each other in the dark. It continued now with a colony learning to walk in the light together, human and alien side by side, building something new, something better, something that looked a lot like hope. And it all began because one person chose compassion over fear, connection over isolation, family over loneliness. That was the most human thing of all.